Yes, today we're joined by Glen's Vodka Championship Manager Month for September and October, Jim Goodwin. Congratulations, mate, how are you?
Thanks very much, Simon. Yeah, I'm really good, mate. Good to be here.
I've also gave you the award as the most handsome manager in the world.
Oh, I don't know about that. Not much competition in Scotland, mind you, so.
The compliments stop there because I've been told by Stephen Thompson to ask you why your hands are so small.
Tom, well, I can't believe you actually reached out to him. I wouldn't expect him to say anything good, but no, he gives me a hard time for my hands, but I think my hands are alright.
No, they're sturdy things, mate.
They're alright.
He says that his hands look tiny when he's holding a certain body part. Could you confirm or deny that?
I would deny that big time.
He did also tell us that you're absolutely ripped.
I used to be. I don't know about that anymore. Yeah, listen, I took a bit of pride in myself when I was playing. Had to be fit and was always in the gym. It was something that Tomo wasn't.
Was he not now?
Oh, he wasn't into the gym, the big man, no.
Did he have a bit? He never had a belly in that, did he?
No, he was in good shape. But no, listen, I enjoyed going to the gym. I was one of those lads that didn't have to be dragged in there. But no, nowadays.
Do you still keep yourself in good nick?
Try and keep myself taken over, but no, I've not been in a gym since I left St Mirren as a player. Would you believe?
Well, you've not worked out since that?
Not lifted a weight since I stopped playing for St Mirren.
So what do you do? Run?
Wee bit of running, wee bit of walking. Used to love cycling, but haven't been on the bike for a long time. I just do little bits and pieces, but nothing major.
Did you join in training?
Only with the rondos.
Rondos are brilliant, isn't it? Never in the games at the end of that now?
No, not anymore. When I was at St Mirren, obviously felt a bit fitter and I was a little bit younger, and I had if there was a player dropped out or that, I would obviously jump in and get involved then, but no, not very often anymore.
You ever smash a player?
I have done that by accident on a couple of occasions, yeah.
Never on purpose now?
No, never on purpose, no.
Who was it you smashed by accident? Do you remember?
No, there was a couple of occasions where my touch usually let me down like it always did, and somebody got the brunt of it, but nothing major. Nobody got injured.
I wanted to ask you though, because I know your kid plays. We always ask about Derek Ferguson, guys like that on here. What kind of football dad are you? Is your boy a goalkeeper, am I right in saying?
My boy's
See, I've done my homework, mate.
You have done your research, haven't you? Yeah, no, James, my wee boy, is 10 years old, and yeah, I take more satisfaction out in going and watching him some weekends than I do other football. But yeah, he's a goalkeeper. He's mad, as you have to be a keeper. He's playing at West Park and he loves it. Do
you critique him after games? You tell him what you could have done better?
Nah,
what do you say to a goalie, told me, innit?
Well, look, I always just want him to go and enjoy it. I'm not one of those pushy parents that are desperate for their kid to go and be a professional footballer, as much as he would love that to happen. He did ask me last year if I could maybe sign him when he's older as a fourth choice and all this kind of stuff,
You probably would have played him for your team last year now.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
I'm sorry.
Kel Roos was alright. Kel Roos was one of the best goalkeepers in the league last year.
But forget about last year. This year, sitting top of the championship, absolutely fine. Delighted with the progress they're making.
Yeah, listen, I couldn't be any happier about the team at the moment. Obviously disappointed with how last season panned out, getting relegated. I felt we had turned the corner in the latter part of the season, but unfortunately after the split we just didn't do enough. But this season, big rebuild in the summer. Had to move lots of players out, which is never easy. And then, a huge push on the recruitment side of things. And I think we've done a lot of good business. The players who came in settled in really quickly, and we've had the ideal start, but I keep reminding people that that's all it is. I don't want the players getting carried away and thinking that this is the way it's always going to be. They've worked hard to put themselves in this position, and me getting the last 2 Manager of the Month awards is very pleasing, and but it's more of a recognition for how well the team are doing.
See, on the recruitment, how much do you take to do with that? Because when I looked at your recruitment as well, do they look like Jim Goodwin type players to me? Not just in terms of playing ability, but characters as well. Docherty, Faith Thistle, Holt, the same. Yeah,
I mean, at every club I've been at, I've always had a very hands-on approach with regards to that. I think as a manager, you have to have the final say in terms of what players are coming in. At different clubs, it's different setups. Alloa obviously part-time. St Mirren, done a lot of it on my own, had a little bit of assistance from obviously the backroom team. Then when you go to Aberdeen, it's a different setup again, where you've got a director of football and a head of recruitment. Worked really closely with Darren Mowbray. And then again, when Darren's bringing me the players, ultimately I've got the the final say in which one we push the button on, and Dundee United's the same. You know, there's a lot of hard work that goes in behind the scenes. That's definitely the most time-consuming part of the job, you know, especially going into summer windows. January, not so much, because, you know, I don't tend to do a whole lot of business in January. If we needed one or two, then, you know, we might be in a position to do it. But the summer windows are always very demanding. And, you know, when the season ends for players, obviously, you know, straight away you're beginning the next day as a manager to go and try and recruit good players that's going to make you successful.
We use off on Monday?
No, we Sunday, Wednesday, normally our days off.
This week though, didn't want to be a grass, but I met a few of the boys that they weren't drinking.
No, they weren't off. No, they had. We played on Friday night, so we obviously had a good result on Friday night against Dunfermline, so we gave the boys the weekend off.
I'm not going to name who it is, but Kevin Holt's your top scorer with 8 goals.
Holt's had a brilliant season. What an impact he's had. And I mean, look, defensively we have been excellent. We've got the best defensive record in the league, and that's credit to the likes of Kev, Declan Gallagher, Jack Walton in goal. The back four have been solid. We've had two, more often than not, two holding midfielders sitting in front of them, and Sibbald and Docherty, Tilson laterally. But Holt's made a great impact. You know, we brought him in for his defensive attributes, but we always knew he was a threat in the opposition box as well, and he's come up with some really important goals. I
played him at Dundee. He's a good lad. Docherty's a good lad as well. A lot of time for the two of them.
Well, look, I mean, that's a big part of the recruitment for me as well. You know, I've rejected players in the past who I know are good players, but maybe just didn't have the right character to fit into the culture that we're trying to build at certain clubs. And you know, that's a huge part of signing any player. You know, what are they like as people first and foremost? Are they going to be able to take on instructions, but at the same time, are they going to be good lads around the place? Because, you know, I only get to see the players, as you'll know, more often than not out on the training pitch. You might have one or two individual meetings with players or group meetings, but, you know, the guys in the dressing room spend a hell of a lot of time together, and it's really important to get those dynamics right, and I think we have done that up to now.
Do you never go in the dressing room now?
Very rarely, unless I need to give someone the curly finger to go and give them some bad news.
Tony what?
Tony.
He's some boy.
Tony's brilliant. He's brilliant. You know, he's had a difficult couple of years. You know, since coming to Dundee United, he's obviously went out on loan for the second half of last season, picked up that injury, and he's, you know, took him a little bit of time to get back up to speed, but he's been brilliant for us this season. You know, and you know what it's like for a forward player. Confidence plays a big part, but, you know, ability-wise, Tony's far too good to be playing in the league that we're playing in, and he's shown that quite consistently. Also.
We're going to see you on one of his vlogs.
No, that's one of the rules that I spoke to him about, because I know he likes having that camera about, but I told him, look, I don't mind you having about in the dressing room. Obviously nothing to do with tactics and anything like that, and everything. Well, that as well. Nothing inappropriate, and make sure it's edited properly, and at no point throughout the course of the season am I to be on it.
I wanted to ask you as well, because again, people I spoke to tell me that you do everything. A lot of the goals that Kevin Holt scored have came for set pieces, and then I'm just thinking that the Premier League clubs now, set piece specialists. How much do you do in terms of set pieces, or do you delegate that to coaches? Do you have a say in it? How do you work?
Listen, one of the things I'm probably guilty of is doing too much, you know, and trying to delegate and allow other members of staff to do things. But yeah, I mean, obviously I've got the final say in what the set play looks like, or what the team selection looks like. And yeah, we work really hard on set plays. You know, there's a lot of stats out there and a lot of data out there for how important corners and free kicks and different things are. So we do spend a lot of time on it. We've bedded down 3 at the beginning of the season, and we've kind of stuck with that. If we do our analysis on opposition and we've identify a weakness at some point in the games that are upcoming, then we might tweak what the set play looks like. But we have been very successful and scored a lot of goals from set plays, and obviously it's down to movement in the box, but you know yourself, more importantly, it's about the delivery that comes in. And we've got really good technical players that tend to put the ball where it needs to go, and then we've got aggressive boys that go and attack it and get on the end of it.
So see how you're saying in terms of you do a lot, so talk us through what you, meetings in the morning, you take analysis before training, then you actually take training itself, you're out on the grass?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, my title is obviously a manager, and that was the same at Aberdeen, but I think it's, you know, the modern day game, you're a head coach, aren't you? So that's what I do. You know, Lee Sharp, my assistant, we'll take the first part of the session, whether we're doing a bit of passing or a little bit of possession. But yeah, the tactical side of things, that's my baby, and that's where I step in and take a lot of control of that. And but don't get me wrong, I've got a great backroom team. Dave Bowman's been at United for a long time. Paul Mather's a very experienced goalkeeping coach, and obviously Sharpie's been with me from day one, and we do bounce ideas off of each other. I'm very open to people giving opinions and offering their own insight into it. But I ultimately, as manager, have to make the difficult decisions, and that's the way we go.
See, on your coaching, where was there a place or a manager that where did you get your sessions from? Have you went and watched somebody that you enjoyed how they coached, or where did you get your ideas from in terms of what you produce every day for the players?
Well, I think I've been in the game a hell of a long time. I think 27 years, I think it is, in full-time football. I've worked with so many good coaches and managers during that period. Worked with youth teams in the past at previous clubs. Just picked up a whole lot of ideas, and then obviously watching the games that you see on the telly now, the likes of Guardiola, and I'm never ashamed to say that I steal people's ideas. I think there's a lot of young coaches out there who try and reinvent the wheel and try and come up with all these new fancy ways of doing things. I think you have to put your own stamp on it, but ultimately I think everything gets recycled. It's just about trying to adapt and make it work to the players that you've got.
Brilliant, definitely working. Didn't start great to defeat the Spartans. How there was a lot of noise made over that result. How worried were you come 4:45 on that Saturday with the season just starting?
I wasn't worried. I mean, it wasn't the ideal start, and as with any new season, you want to hit the ground running and get a bit of confidence and get a bit of momentum early doors. But we never underestimated Spartans. Nobody thought it was going to be an easy game. Obviously, it's a very tight pitch, the AstroTurf pitch. It was a really dry day. There was no, it was very sticky. And we didn't play well, but I wasn't overly concerned. I thought Spartans deserved to win the game. We had a number of opportunities. We've missed a penalty and different things like that, but we weren't ready at that particular time. That's the bottom line. We weren't finished with the recruitment either. 2 or 3 players, key players came in a week or two after that. And I think, we had poor performances in the first 2 fixtures against Spartans and Partick Thistle, and then since then, we've not lost the game. I think it's 17 or 18 games since then unbeaten. So, as difficult as that was to take at the time, because the League Cup is a competition that I've always enjoyed, relative success in, and got to the latter stages, whether it be quarterfinals or semi-finals, and unfortunately this time round we went out at the first time of asking, which was extremely disappointing. And
what type of manager are you like in the dressing room after a defeat like that? Is it a rant and a rave, or is it staying calm and keeping everyone kind of a level peg?
Well, people have a perception of me based on my playing days as I'm this madman running about the place, kicking and shouting and bawling, but I'm, things couldn't be further from the truth, to be honest with you. I think it's important every now and again, if people need a rocket up the arse, then you need to step in and give it. That generally only comes when you feel that the players aren't playing to their best or carrying out the instructions that you've been asked. But I mean, I could probably count on one hand in the last 5 years where I've really, felt I've lost my temper in the dressing room, and I think it was justified. But I think in the modern day game now, I think players react completely different to those situations now, and I try not to spend too much over analysing the game immediately after it. I think it's important to take a day or two to, watch the game back and really have a fair and honest assessment of it on the Monday morning. Yeah.
And has that changed for when you first started? So see, when you first became a manager, would it have been very reactive in ranting and raving?
I think initially, probably when I just finished up playing at Alloa, about 34, and then obviously got that job probably a little bit earlier than I had thought I was going to get it. Jack Ross moving on to St Mirren, and I was probably not ready at that particular point to become a manager, and made loads of mistakes. And I think, the journey that I've been on up to now, I probably couldn't have planned it any better than the way it worked out. I think it's a great grounding for any young manager, and the way that you have done it yourself as well, trying to work your way up the ladder. I think when you're down in those lower leagues, and Alloa, was the perfect club for me with the best people around me. You were working for, the best chairman that I've ever had the pleasure of working with, and Mike Mulroney as well. Very hands-off guy, allowed me to make mistakes. You are kind of under the radar a wee bit, there's not a whole lot of press attention. So I made numerous mistakes in those first couple of seasons at Alloa.
Could you tell us what they are? Just because I need to fucking know. I've made them all as well.
Yeah,
keep making them.
Listen, I think it's the kind of job that, you know, you have to try and survive in at the early part, to make those mistakes, learn about yourself, you know, figure out what works and what doesn't work, and then try not and make those same mistakes again, I think.
We'll come to the start of your career in a bit, but just on the Dundee United, what was it that appealed? What was it about the job that appealed to you? Obviously, massive club.
Well, exactly. You know, huge club, great history. You know, proper stadium, fan base, everything about it. And listen, I'm a very lucky man. You know, to have had the opportunities that I've had at this age already. You know, I don't take that for granted. Hugely disappointing time at Aberdeen, the way that things ended up. And I had planned for being out of the game until the summer. You know, and myself and the family had talked about different things that we were going to do and holidays. And then the phone rings, you know, 2 or 3 weeks later about the Dundee United opportunity, and it was just far too good an opportunity to turn down. I knew what I was going into at the time, and, you know, thoroughly believed that there was a group of players there capable of turning things around, and we nearly did. But yeah, I mean, that's the lure of a big club with those types of facilities and that type of backing with supporters. I think I would have been mad to turn it down.
See, when the job came up, were you sitting in your house secretly thinking, I hope they phone me?
Well, the Motherwell one had came up prior to that, right. And I did have an off-the-record kind of conversation with Motherwell. I never, you know, put my CV in or anything like that. I never applied for the job. I did get a WhatsApp from someone asking, you know, why hadn't I done that, and I just felt that probably wasn't the right time. But then the Dundee United one, I think, was about a week or two later, and you know, spoke to them, spoke to the board, and, you know, just felt that was the right opportunity to get back in. And again, as I speak about, you know, how lucky to have been let go at such a big club in Aberdeen to then be given the next opportunity at another huge club in Dundee United. And as I said, it was too good to turn down.
Has it surprised you how big a club Dundee United is? Because I'm from Dundee, my pals are Dundee United fans, and when I hear them talking group, you think Dundee United or Barcelona the way they talk to me. Do you know what I mean? Like how big a club the fans think that Dundee United is. The expectancy that comes for the fans is incredible at Dundee United, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that level of expectation is there at a lot of clubs like Dundee United. You know, your Hearts, your Hibs, your Aberdeens. I mean, you know, you go back to the 70s and the 80s and even maybe the early 90s, that these clubs are used to competing domestically for cups and for, you know, challenging for league titles and being involved in Europe consistently. And I think there is a certain section of supporters at Dundee United that are used to those glory days. And, you know, it's up to us, I suppose, now to try and get ourselves out of this championship that we're in, get back into the Premier League and rebuild and try and force our way back up the table to become a consistent top 6 team, and then hopefully, you know, become European competitors again as well, which would be great. But it didn't surprise me. I mean, I do a lot of research on all of the clubs that I go into, in case you do get asked these questions about things that have happened in the past. And, you know, Dundee United is a brilliantly supported club, not just in Dundee. You know, I meet fans in Glasgow when I'm out and about who are Dundee United fans as well. So it didn't come as a surprise to me, to be honest.
Just on the Aberdeen, how do you look back on your time there? I think just before the World Cup, you're sitting third in the league. See, when you assess it, what do you think the change was after that?
Well, listen, firstly, I absolutely loved my time at the club, and, you know, had great backing from the owner and from the people around behind the scenes. I thought we had done really well in the summer in terms of the recruitment that we had done, the quality of players that we were able to bring into the club, and we had a really good start. And, you know, up until January, you know, sitting third in the table, we had a League Cup semi-final to look forward to against Rangers in the new year. And then obviously that break comes where I think it caught us all a little bit by surprise. I don't think any of us were quite as good as what we were in terms of all the teams. I don't think anybody was quite as good as what they were going into that break, coming out of it. And I think it took us, ourselves at Aberdeen, I think it was a little bit longer, I think, to adapt. Of course, there are things that I always look back on and think I could have done that differently, We went to Atlanta. We've got a partnership with Atlanta United in America. So straight after that last game prior to the split, prior to the break, we went to Atlanta for a week. And you know what it's like, you know, we got 4 weeks off. The last thing the boys want to be doing is training for another week. But we had to go to Atlanta. We trained for 3 days. We played a game, and then of course we gave the boys a little bit of downtime as well on the other side of the week. And then I don't think we managed that period, and you know, that's probably a real regret of mine in terms of getting the boys' fitness levels back up to where they needed to be. Trying to organise friendlies at that point was really difficult as well. And you know, when you're going back into that next fixture being at home to Celtic, and then the following one after that, at home to Rangers, not taking anything from those 2 games, I think we found it very hard to get any kind of momentum back after that.
You see, when you think back to the Darvel game, that was the big game, wasn't it? Again, is there anything you would have done differently for that? I think, was it Shinnie and Hayes that were on the bench? There was a lot was made of that as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, hindsight's a great thing. You know, I chose carefully in the build up to the game. We had a number of players in the squad who hadn't quite played as many minutes as what they would have liked, and it wasn't because I was underestimating Darvel whatsoever. You know, I knew and expressed to the players how difficult this fixture was going to be, because I knew quite a few of the players who were there already. I'd worked with a few of them in the past, and I felt a number of those players should have definitely been playing at a higher level, but saw the ambition of Darvel and that appealed to them. So we didn't underestimate Darvel. I still believe the 11 players that we put out on the pitch in comparison to the players that Darvel had should have been good enough to go and win the game. But of course, in hindsight now, I should have picked my strongest 11. I should have made sure that we got the job done. And, you know, that's a big learning curve for me, because ultimately it cost us the game. You know, nobody mentions the offside goal that we should have had that was clearly onside, and had that been allowed, we would have went to 1 each, and I think had a bit of momentum at the time and possibly could have went and won the game. But I haven't spoken about that because it just sounds like sour grapes. But if there had been VAR, that goal would have counted and things might have been different. But I have to take accountability and take responsibility for the team that I put out in the park, and we weren't good enough on the night. And
then it's the Hibs game after that. The owner comes out and his interview. I mean, I've never seen an owner speak like that about a manager. So again, from the outside, it maybe looks like that relationship's distant, but as you say, great relationship with him.
No, the relationship couldn't have been any better with myself and Dave Cormack. I mean, honestly, from day one, a great support. I think Aberdeen as a football club are really fortunate to have someone like that behind them with that financial backing. Obviously Stuart Milne stepped down and Dave stepped up into that chairman's seat, and he puts his money where his mouth is, you know. And everything I went and asked him for that I felt was going to improve us as a team, or whether it was infrastructure wise, he backed me to the hilt. So I can't, walk away from that job and think I didn't have the support that I should have had. The people behind the scenes were absolutely brilliant. Unfortunately, there was mitigating circumstances. There was a lot of things I could go into that, would sound like excuses in terms of injuries to certain players. But I'm not going to go back over that again. I've learned a lot from it. I'm extremely disappointed at how it ended, because when you're at a club like that with, one of the biggest budgets in the league, you do plan and expect to be successful. And prior to that World Cup break, we were flying, sitting third on the table, looked a really good team. And unfortunately, when we came back after the World Cup break, we didn't look the same, and it cost me my job ultimately. But I take full responsibility for that. I've learned a hell of a lot from that, and I think I've been able to carry that forward with me into this Dundee United job that I'm in now. Because
after that game when you walked across the pitch, I wanted to just come and give you a hug, maybe even a kiss. I don't know if you'd been up for that, but is that one of the lowest days you've had in football?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I hadn't felt, I've been released from clubs in the past before. I've had loads of managers throughout the course of my playing career telling me I wasn't part of their plans. They didn't think I was good enough. All of that, that's part and parcel of the game that we're in. But, people always tell you as a manager, the sack is going to come at some point. But I had worked so hard to get that kind of an opportunity. There's not many bigger clubs outside Celtic and Rangers than Aberdeen. And, it was a great opportunity for me, one that I look back on fondly in terms of, having been given that chance in the first place. The relationships that I built up, I still keep in contact with a number of the staff up there. Great contact with some of the players that we brought to the club as well, some good relationships. But, you live and die by your results. And my results after the World Cup break weren't good enough, and I just have to accept that. And that's the way the game goes.
Because did you know before the game if you didn't win you were gone? And how hard must that have been preparing for a game where that sort of pressure was under you?
I mean, before the Darvel game, we'd been to Tynecastle, and again probably didn't have our strongest 11 available to us, but at the same time, a humiliating defeat. And then the Darvel game happened. I felt after that one that probably would be the final nail in the coffin, and I was fully expecting, to be released of my duties. But, I fought tooth and nail to try and stay in the job.
Did you want to convince, like?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much...
How do you do that? Just a phone call straight away? Listen, I'll get this right.
Yeah, spoke to the chairman, asked to sit down and meet with the rest of the board members. I think a few of them had already made their mind up, if I'm being honest. But I'd asked for one last crack at it. I said, look, just give me this Hibs game. Let's see what we can do on Saturday in a difficult game away at Easter Road. But just give me one last chance. Darvel, obviously a humiliating defeat for a club the size of Aberdeen. But unfortunately, Hibs went the same way as the Hearts one. And that was it. I knew as the goals were going in the second half, I knew what was coming after the game. And met Dave in the tunnel. He asked me if I wanted to go and speak to, it was Stephen Gunn in the tunnel. He said, do you want to go and speak to the players? I said, nah. I said, look, Mum, let's just get this over and done with. I said, went to see the chairman, shook his hand, thanked him for the opportunity, broke the news to the players and left.
Hard, mate, eh?
Listen, it's part and parcel of football, isn't it? At the end of the day, I've taken a lot of learnings from it. I think it's made me a better manager. It's certainly made me not take things for granted maybe as much and appreciate the opportunities that I've been given. It is tough, but there's a hell of a lot worse things happening in the world out there, and there's a hell of a lot of people struggling in everyday life right now, and you just need to turn on the news to see what's happening on the other side of the world. So as much as it was a disappointment for me and my family, it's not the end of the world for me, really.
Sorry to keep going on, just last question on this, because see when things are going like that, how are you at home? Do you take it home with you, or are you quite good at switching off?
No, well, listen, my wife might beg to differ, but I don't think I changed too much. My kids are amazing. They always give you a lift when you go through the door, especially my wee boy who's 10, who's football mad. And, that was a challenge in itself, not being able to spend the weekdays with them as often as what I would have. We're a very tight, close-knit family, and have moved on the road together everywhere. But because of the stage that my two girls were at school, felt it was really difficult for me to uproot them up to Aberdeen, especially when you see what happened with the previous manager as well, how little time he got. I didn't want to put my family in that situation. I thought it would have been a bit selfish on my part. So I was delighted to get back home. My wife and kids always, pick me up when things aren't going so well, and they are very good at giving you a bit of a reality check as well. So, no, they're a great support, and we're enjoying the football at the moment with the results going the way they are.
See, that's where I'm going wrong. My kids bring me down. Their personality, mate. That's what I need to get better kids. See, on reflection to that, see if you think you had them closer to you, do you think again things maybe could have been different? Because it's a big thing for you, innit? When you're going home, you've not got anybody that sort of network that you can go and talk to, and it's just football constantly.
I mean, look, in an ideal world, the wife and kids would come wherever you go, but I think there comes a point where your kids are settled at school. My eldest daughter, had big exams coming up. I just think it would have been really selfish of me to demand that they come up to Aberdeen with me. We've got a great network of friends and family around us at Glasgow, where we live. And I felt I could make it work. And, it was working for the first 6 months of the job. So I can't look back on that and think it didn't work because of that. Right. It was working fine in the first half of the season. Everything was taking along nicely, albeit my wife was left with absolutely everything to do back down the road, whereas normally I would be able to do the odd school run or take one of them to their clubs or whatever. But listen, it's great to be back home now, 7 days a week, and being able to travel to my work and travel home on the day is perfect.
Favourite restaurant in Lindsay?
I'd have to say, because I know the owner very well, Nona's in Kirkintilloch.
Is it Fraser Craig?
I know Fraser.
Can't give him a mention.
I know Paolo.
Paolo's a great. His son played with my son as well.
Aye,
lovely guy.
So Paolo's son, Antonio, is best pals with with my wee boy. They go to the same school in the same class, and yes, I think if we're going to start plugging anybody on this, I better plug theirs.
And Rosoy, the Indian's really nice. Been?
Yeah, been Rosoy,
nice.
And I live not far from the old gatehouse as well, so good pint of Guinness in there.
Oh, lovely. Right, getting into management. Am I right in saying you're assistant manager at start with Alloa?
No.
Wikipedia's wrong.
No.
Player manager at Alloa.
Yeah, I was player manager. Jack Ross had brought me in just solely to play, not part of the backroom staff, and I was loving it at the time.
What dropped him down for? So it was League One. Yeah,
into League One. Listen, usual footballer mentality. Probably, I was 34, I think it was, when I left St Mirren. I still felt really fit. I was still, producing in all of the fitness tests. I still thought I had plenty left in my legs.
It's a bit of a drop, that, mate. Why didn't you stay Premier League Championship full time?
I had opportunities. I didn't have any opportunities to stay in the Premier League. I had one or two opportunities to go full time in the Championship, but financially, I just didn't think it was worth it. And I looked at the Alloa job. Speaking to people that had worked with Mike Mulready in the past, the likes of Danny Lennon and Paul Hartley and guys like that, and knowing Jacko like I did as well, always felt Jacko would be a success. Speaking to guys that worked with him at Dumbarton, with Ian Murray, and obviously, knowing him well from ex-teammate into the job he done with the PFA, I just firmly believed that Jack would be really successful there, have a great season, get the club promoted, and then get a job elsewhere. It probably happened a lot quicker than Jack would expected as well. Alloa had a brilliant start, and the St Mirren job became available. Jack Ross went there. Mike Mulroney phoned me and asked me if I would be up to meeting him to have a discussion about it, and I had fully intended on playing all that season, but I just felt the opportunity was too good to turn down. I'd done all the badges pretty much. And
had you ever coached before, Jim?
No, not out with the clubs that I'd been a part of. Took part in reserve teams and youth teams in the past, but never a senior team. So it was a bit of a difficult transition. Initially I kept myself as a player, and that was probably the first mistake I made as a manager.
Why? Because if you're having shockers and they're all looking at you saying, go on, get your finger at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was one of the worst players in the team, giving away the ball more than anybody else, and then having to come in at half time and start trying to tell the team where we're going wrong, and there's 10 fingers pointing back at me, know. So that was probably the first mistake I made. I only played, I think, 4 or 5 games as player manager, and then just took the decision then to just take a step back completely. Never officially retired or anything like that. I just, wanted to fully focus and concentrate on the managing side of things, because, as you know, being involved in it is extremely demanding. And as much as it's part-time, I actually think you guys in the part-time, and I've always said it from leaving Alloa, managing Alloa was more difficult for me than any of the full-time roles that I've had since.
Really?
Without a shadow of a doubt, of course.
Because you only get them for 2 days, you only see them for 2 hours.
You see the players on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and obviously work with them on a Saturday. You've got no time really to debrief, to do any analysis. Not a great deal of time to walk through patterns of play. You've got boys who've been out working, 8, 10, 12-hour shifts, coming to the train, and the last thing they want to be doing is standing around talking about shape. They want to come in, get on with their session, enjoy their football. So
that's why we just play tag for 2 hours.
Aye, head tennis and rondo. So Tuesday was always a really physical day at Alloa, fitness wise, and then Thursday was more tactical element, but still trying to keep it as enjoyable as possible for the group. And very lucky again, because of the good recruitment and the good job that Jack Ross had done, I inherited a brilliant group of players, And
so did you just continue what Jack had done in terms of coaching and training and how you played, or did you change that completely?
No, I didn't really change a great deal, to be honest with you. The team pretty much picked itself, with a really strong starting 11. In January, I brought a couple of loan lads in that were good for us, and unfortunately that season we missed out on going up. We got beaten the playoff final by Brecon on penalties, and then that was probably a blessing in disguise looking back on it now, because I felt that the next season we would be stronger. We'd keep that core group of players together, we'd bring in better players again, and we'd give ourselves a better opportunity to get out. And thankfully, the second time round we got up by beating Dumbarton in the playoffs.
Would you say at that level there is players that could definitely play higher, but maybe that just didn't have the dedication that full-time players have?
I don't think it even boils down to dedication. I actually think some of them take the sensible option, and I think it's quite an intelligent move by a number of them. And I struggled. You asked about leaving St Mirren and dropping down into that level, but I looked at what I was going to be going from earning at St Mirren to earning possibly in the Championship full time.
Can't pay for a 5-bedroom in Lindsay on that.
Well, exactly. So then I've always had a kind of a business mindset, and I'm always kind of dipping in and out of different things. And I felt there was an opportunity for me maybe to start something and to do something on my own. And I got into I've done a number of different jobs, but then I got into a couriering business and got a contract. And I felt that was the plan, was to try and build this up and get a few vans on the road and continue to stay as a part-time manager. And that's what I done. But I think a number of these part-time guys are doing the right thing and trying to, get an education or get a real sustainable career that's going to carry them on into their 50s and their 60s. Because I see too many footballers, 30-year-old, getting X amount of money to be a full-time footballer because they like the tag of being a full-time player, when really is it the best thing for them for the long-term future of their careers and their families.
So what was your job? Was it selling chocolate? Am I right in saying that? Was it?
I went to work with Cadbury's, with Lee Sharp.
Is that how you met?
No, I met Sharpie at Alloa.
Right.
I knew him prior to that. He'd actually played with my brother-in-law Clyde as well.
Right.
But
who's your brother-in-law, sorry?
Michael Oliver.
Hopeless. No, I'm kidding.
He's manager of Ashfield right now. Actually, He done great last season. Got Ashfield promoted, and he's he's up in the league above now and doing really, really well. He's an up and coming young manager, I would say, who's got a good opportunity ahead of him. But Sharpie, was working with Cadbury's, and obviously the money I was earning at Alloa was never going to be enough to pay the bills and keep the family. So I had to go and get a real job, and I didn't shy away from that side of it. I think there's a number of ex-professionals who maybe don't want to be seen to go down that route, but ultimately you got to do what you got to do to support the family.
So was Sharpie your assistant at this time? So you talking about tactics while you were
no,
at work?
We weren't in the same car or anything like that. He had his set of calls, I had my set of calls. Done that for about 12 months, and then dabbled in a bit of construction recruitment with a company in Glasgow. Don't know if you know Brian McGinty. Do you remember Brian McGinty? He used to play for Rangers and Hull, and so Gints was in this recruitment company. So still keep in touch with Brian. He was managing a Cumnock actually recently and done really, really well with them. So then I went into the couriering thing after that and loved it. That was my favourite job of the lot. So
was this your own business that you came up with?
Yeah, well, it wasn't my own, but I was working, for a subcontractor, if you like, for one of the bigger companies over at Eurocentral, and but managed to work my way in and got a decent contract off them. My route was down to Stranraer every day, delivering around there, and so early starts.
Delivering hundreds of chocolate to Kev Kyle, that is.
No chocolate. No chocolate. Kev wouldn't be getting that off me either. No chocolate. I was delivering passports, visas, pharmaceutical stuff for that particular company, and I loved it. And I think it was probably, I knew I wasn't cut out for an office job, and there was you're always on the go in the van, in and out, keeping yourself fit if you like, and it was brilliant.
Was there ever you Jim Goodwin?
All the time, man.
What is it?
All the time, yeah, all the time.
What, just with customers, like?
Well, you were knocking on people's doors trying to get signatures off them, yeah, and then people double taking, and then you're going, yeah, that's me, back in the van, away you go.
There you go. So see how, this is obviously going quite well at the time, so when St Mirren come, was there a consideration of, like you said, I can see a business that I've got here for till I'm 50 or 60, it's quite a big gamble to go and take a St Mirren job now.
I tried to keep it on initially, so I took the St Mirren job. I managed to get a driver to cover the route, and the intention was to try and build this business up and try and get another van on the road every year, and maybe get by the end of it half a dozen vans on the road, because that's the way the world is going now, isn't it? Deliveries for everything. So yeah, I was well in, and I knew, I developed good relationships with the guys doing the logistics side of things and all that. And I regret not being able to to keep that on, because you know, it would have been a good outside business. Wasn't a huge distraction or anything like that from the football point, but it just became too much in the end, relying on different people to keep things going, and ultimately just gave the route back to the company, and they subbed it out to somebody else.
So when does the St Mirren job come along? Like, you've won the league with Alloa, you said?
Yeah, just...
is it in that summer that
no, we didn't win. We got up through the playoffs against Dumbarton. One of my favourite games of all time at Dumbarton. Scoring late on, Ross Stewart and Jordan Kirkpatrick, and you know, the celebrations after that was brilliant.
Ross Stewart, who's now at... Was it Sunderland?
Yeah, we took Ross on loan from St Mirren.
Right. Did you tell he was going to go?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah, without a doubt. I was telling every pal of mine who was an agent that you need to try and get this guy, because he's just going to go from strength to strength to strength. And didn't quite work out for him as well as he would have liked at St Mirren, but then obviously got the move up to Ross County. Excuse me. And and has kicked on obviously down to Sunderland and doing great. But yeah, we went up with Alloa, and then we had the year in the championship with Alloa, and obviously being the only part-time team in the league at that time, you're massive underdogs to go straight back down. Nobody's giving you a hope in hell, and somehow we managed to avoid relegation and avoid that playoff place at the end. Finished 8th, stayed up, and then the St Mirren thing came around.
Any honourable mentions, other players at Alloa? Who else was really good for you? You know, a lot of the boys there.
Andy Graham was
Still playing
probably
incredible.
one of the best captains that I've ever worked with, from playing days right through even now as a manager. Just top professional, great leader in the dressing room. Scott Taggart at right back has been a great servant with Kev Cawley. I could go on and on and on. You know, Graham Holmes still playing now, but
we played him Saturday, mate. He was outstanding for coming on.
Homer never gives the ball away. Ever gives the ball away. And I mean, just loads of really good lads that that was the one thing I loved about the part-time thing. You know, there's no egos in these dressing rooms. You know, they know where they're at, they accept the level that they're at. Ian Flanagan was another one who should have, without a shadow of a doubt, been playing full-time football somewhere. But again, we get back to the education thing and him thinking further forward and having the common sense to realise that he needs to have a life after football. Neil Parry was in the goal. Parry. He sends me ridiculous messages late on a Saturday night from time to time.
Does he?
And still, yeah. And me and him like the NFL. So
that's right, because he goes out to watch it, doesn't he?
He goes and watches it, and so we have a bit of banter around that. But yeah, I could go on about that group of players, and you know, I would never have got the next opportunity had it not been for obviously Mike Mulroney giving me the opportunity initially. But then, you know, as a manager, you're only as good as the players, aren't you?
Yeah.
And the players made a successful team, which then obviously puts my name out there. The connection I had with St Mirren as a player, when that opportunity opened up, then it seemed like the obvious choice. Do
you remember where the day St Mirren phoned you?
I do, yes, I do. It was Gus McPherson had phoned me, and you know, the manager had just left. I think they were doing the rounds and trying to see who would be interested, and you know, obviously I told Gus absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, I'd be really keen, but I need to go and speak to Mike Mulroney first, because I owe him so much up to now that I need to make sure we do things properly. And we did. St Mirren conducted themselves brilliantly, went down the correct routes in terms of making it happen, and you know, I went and said my goodbyes to all the people over there at Alloa. Pat Dunn, the kit man, who I still keep in touch with, who's been there forever. Joyce, looking after the boys with the food. You know, there was so many great people. That's without a shadow of a doubt, and I know there'll be a number of part-time teams out there who pride themselves on how they run, but that's one of the best clubs. Forget professional and part-time, it's one of the best run football clubs that I've ever been at.
Do you ever go for a beer with the boys, part-time? You won somewhere and that day you got promoted?
No, I've never socialised with the players. No, the odd time, you know, if we were away on a pre-season tour or something, I'd invite them down to the bar and buy them around and then tell them to do one, because I tend to be messier than them, and I don't want them to see that.
There is. I'm going to ask you about hitting Stephen Tom O'Well-Lemon. Is that right? So about 70 yards.
I can't believe he's not giving me a heads up on some of the stuff that he's actually doing.
So St Mirren job, did you need an interview for it?
No interview, no.
Just the job?
I say no interview. I went to meet them in an office in Glasgow. give them my ideas, and just for them, I suppose, to one or two of the board members that I wasn't too familiar with, just to pick my brains and see what my philosophy, if you like, that buzzword that people love to talk about. But I suppose they just wanted to get a feel for me and see if we could work together. And straight after that, pretty much 10 minutes after that meeting, the phone went and they offered me the job.
And buzzing, yeah?
No, I was so excited for it, because St Mirren is probably my favourite club in terms of being there so long as a player. 5.5 years. I think I was there as a player the longest I'd ever been at any club. I'd only stayed 3 years at previous clubs in the past. The people that I had met there, Big Tomo being one of them, couldn't stand him initially when he first came through the door.
Why? Just because he was so loud?
No, I just thought me and him are not going to get along, because you know what he's like. He's 100 mile an hour, whereas I would maybe like to sit in the corner and have a bit of peace and quiet sometimes, or read my paper. And I thought, this guy's going to do my head in. But as time went on, we developed a really good relationship, and he's became a really good friend, actually, him and Joanne and the kids. And we don't probably see each other as much as what we would like, but we're in constant contact, and still trying to put something in the diary over Christmas to try and catch up and get a beer. But yeah, St Mirren was brilliant. I loved everything about it. They got a great training facility there, a relatively new stadium. And already had a decent rapport with the supporters because of my time there as a player. So if there was ever a club I wanted to go to after Alloa, then it would have been St Mirren.
Was it strange walking back in as the manager?
It was, because so many of the staff around the building, and they're used to you being there as one of the players. And I think that does certainly take a little bit of time to maybe start putting your own message across and ideas across, and what you're expecting from the backroom team, and how you want the club to be run. But again, great support from all of those people.
Unique first full-time job, because it was COVID season.
Yeah.
How did you find that as a full-time manager?
No, I absolutely hated it. I don't think anybody in the game enjoyed it at all.
What was the most frustrating thing about it? Separation?
All the restrictions. None of us, there's not a coaching badge in the world that prepares you for all of those types of things that you have to deal with. Working in small groups with different sets of players, very hard to try and generate a team spirit, and any kind of bonding obviously went out the window. And I think it was an extremely difficult period for, not just football, but for business in general and for everybody in society. But let's hope that we never have to go back to that type of thing again. Right,
just the playing career, Jim. We've had a number of teenagers feature for you this season. Go back to when you were coming over from Ireland, Celtic. Mm-hmm. Tommy Burns there at the time?
Yeah, Tommy was there, yeah.
A lot of interaction, huh?
Oh yeah, loads. I loved Tommy Burns, God rest him. But he's one of the first people that I'd met when I'd came to the club, and he was so welcoming to me and to my mother and my father in particular, and selling them on this idea of them letting their 15-year-old son move across the water to follow his dream. And I think Tommy really put their minds at ease, along with Willie McStay, about how much they were going to look after me and make sure that I settled in, and that they were going to put demands on me and make sure that I had continued on the good upbringing that I had. And it was a great place to be, and as I said, a dream opportunity for a 15-year-old from the south of Ireland to be coming to a club like Celtic. Was he still using all that, you've been drinking with your breakfast patter and we can get guys at the pub to do that? Yeah, his banter was brilliant, Tommy, as you'll know, and the players had so much respect for him around the place, and obviously being there as manager and then came back as assistant manager and coach, but his enthusiasm, I think, was infectious. And I think that's what we talk about now, looking back on your career and the people that you'd met over that period, and the people that you learn from and take different ideas from. And I think his enthusiasm first and foremost was everything. The players loved him. He always had the room in the palm of his hand when he was talking, and just a pleasure and an honour to be able to work with him. There's a lot of Irish boys at the time. At you, at the same time, sort of Colin Healy. I was coming work experience and you were the reserves, but we were terrified of you. Yeah, we had. It was a wild changing room, wasn't it? Oh well, it was. I mean, I'd seen things when I came over that I had never experienced in my life in a dressing room with the boys for Glasgow. To be fair, just madness. Lads like Andy McCondicky and Mark Anthony, really good footballers. John Paul McBride was there,
player,
unbelievable. Mark Burchell was a year above me as well. But yeah, some great footballers that went on to have really good careers. And
was fighting, I was remembering that.
we had a wild group, our group, yeah. Mark Kokoza, I don't know.
Mark Kokoza, that's right. Centre midfielder like that, wasn't he?
Coco, Jerry Crosley, I think is the one you're thinking about. But Coco was a right back, full back. But Liam Keogh.
Liam Keogh, I'm thinking of. That's who I'm thinking of.
So Liam was my best mate when I was there.
He was a psycho, nah.
He knew how to look after himself, shall we say. Davy Van Zanten and all those ones came in after.
Ross Wallace, Mark Fotheringham,
Spud Murphy.
Spud Murphy, that's right.
Liam Miller, myself and Liam travelled over, God rest him, together and signed pretty much.
Did you the same day?
Well, not the same day, but pretty much that, same time. His mother and my mother became very close friends off the back of it. Just a great time to be at Celtic as well, learning with all these really good players who, some of them went on to have fantastic careers, became great friends, and it was a tough day when the time comes when you have to leave that environment because you're so used to it, having been there from the age of 15 till I was 20, having to make that difficult decision. I had an opportunity to stay for another 12 months, but, spoke to Martin O'Neill, there was no way in the world I was good enough to get into that team, and just felt that it was the right time to go and try and get some first team football somewhere, and I went down to England after that.
How good was Liam Miller?
Oh, unbelievable. The fittest player I've ever worked with. I mean, we used to do the bleep test, you'll remember.
Kenny McDowell?
With Kenny, yeah, and Willie McStay, and
Danny McGrain there?
Tom O'Neill was there, Danny McGrain would have been there. But Liam, they had to stop the tape at one point because he just kept going all the time, beep, 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 and the thing's getting faster and he's keeping going. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. But he had bundles of energy, really talented player. And, I was gutted he didn't stay at Celtic a bit longer. But, he idolised Man United. He was a huge Man United fan. Most of the young lads from Cork tend to be United fans and Celtic fans. Roy Keane was his idol, to go down to Manchester United, work with, Sir Alex Ferguson and be in a dressing room with Roy Keane. I think it was too big a lure for him, and he ended up going down there. What
about in terms of involvement in the first team? Would you train with the first team quite regularly? Who was the manager at that time? Was it John Barnes?
I was in and out the odd time, but not very often. And when John Barnes got the sack, then Kenny Dalglish and Tommy had taken over just on a caretaker role. Listen, they were giving out debuts like packets of crisps at that time.
I remember that. So 15-year-olds playing, weren't they? Fozzie was 16, I think.
Fozzie was 16, but Fozzie was a very talented young 16-year-old, whereas guys like myself and one or two others were given that chance, and it was the last game of the season. Talk us through it. When do you find that you're going to be playing? Is it you come as a sub or did you start? No, I started. It was actually against Dundee United.
That's right. So it was at Celtic Park, wasn't it?
And it was Henrik's comeback game after he'd had that horrendous leg break. But no, I found out on the Thursday when we were shaping up, and then on the Friday, Tommy had said that you might want to, tell your old man there's a good chance you're going to be playing at the weekend, and then phoned him. He came over on the flight, obviously, and I started the game. And one of the mistakes I made actually in the build-up to that game that I haven't probably spoke about a great deal, but we were shaping up and John Kennedy was supposed to play right back, and I don't know if Kendo will remember it, but Kendo was like a duck out of water playing at right back, and I was playing right centre half, which was where I was, that was my position coming through the system, and I had offered to play right back instead because Kendo didn't want to do it, and I thought, well, I don't mind playing there, I'll play there. And that was probably my biggest mistake. And
he never went on and had like a worldie at centre back.
He was brilliant at centre half. I was bang average at right back. I went off with cramp after about 75 minutes because I'm running up and down the side of the line and I wasn't used to doing that. And
so you could have been the Celtic centre half for 20 years.
Listen, I would never have been the Celtic centre half for 20 years. But
so who did you go and offer to play? The manager? You said, I'll play right back.
I said to Tommy, I said, look, if he doesn't want to play there, I said, I don't mind playing there. I said, but I'm thinking I'm, doing a good thing, showing a good attitude to the manager. But no, it came back to bite me in the arse because Kendall went on to play a hell of a lot of games at centre half. And Martin O'Neill came in that summer then, and obviously he was signing, giants at centre half. If you were 6'3" or under, you weren't getting in his team at centre back. And so I went on the first tour to Denmark with the first team, but I knew with the players that were coming through the door, I knew I was going to end up back down with the reserves, and rightly so, because I wasn't good enough to be at that level.
How was Martin O'Neill away? I
think most people would tell you he's quite distant. He'd keep himself to himself. He was never, rude or anything. He used to give me a bit of a hard time in the reserve games because I tended to get myself, daft yellow cards and the odd red card now and again, and he used to give me a bit of bother in the dressing room after that, telling me to stop being stupid and stop going to the ground and all that kind of thing, and but never answered back, did you? He was the one manager I remember. There was the Celtic dressing room at the time. I mean, both Celtic and Rangers were signing superstars. Both sets of players were top players, and as a young lad, I don't know if you were there at the time, but if you remember going into that dressing room with the likes of Sutton, Larson, terrifying. Hartson, Alan Thompson, Gouldy was there at the time, Alan Stubbs, Tommy Johnson, big, strong characters that gave the young lads a torrid time when they came into the dressing room. But as soon as Martin O'Neill walked in the door, you could hear a pin drop. And I know people say that about him, but I've experienced it because I've been in that dressing room listening to the likes of Sutty and that, terrorising people. And then as soon as Martin pops his head in the door, it goes really, really quiet until he says what he has to say or grabs the player he's looking for and then goes back out. So he had an aura about him, a real respect from the players, and huge success as manager. And actually later on, Tommy Johnson came to Scunthorpe with the latter part of his career with us, and we were out for a beer one night, and I remember talking about his days at Celtic, and he loved his time at Celtic, and he was telling us the odd story about Martin O'Neill, and I thought, geez, he's a bit of a weirdo, was he not? Just never said hello to you in the corridor and walked right by you. And Tommy couldn't say anything but good about him. Absolutely loved him. Said his man management was incredible. Just idolised him, and that was a part of Martin O'Neill that I never saw. But yeah, great success as a manager, and obviously went on to manage the Republic of Ireland as well, which was brilliant as well.
See, when something that were giving you a bit, would you be the type that would give a bit back, or would you just take it and walk it?
No, I would every now and again try and give a bit back, but you had to pick your battles wisely with them ones, didn't you? Because Sotty was so good. He was really, really quick-witted, and you were never going to win that battle. Liam Keogh, would give as good as he got, and to the point where he'd nearly be head-to-head with some of them.
He'd be smashing people, first team players in training or not as well, Liam Keogh, wouldn't he?
He had no fear whatsoever. Just a great guy. As I said, we became really close and kept in contact. Probably, have kind of fell out of contact with each other in the last few years, but I actually met his young boy Shay, who's up in the youth system at Inverness now. Met him last time we were up at Inverness, and he's the spitting image of his dad.
Ugly boy then?
No, he's a handsome looking man, and yeah, so Liam will be no doubt very proud of what Shay's doing at the moment. But just that's football, isn't it? It's very hard to explain to people who have got everyday jobs what that banter is like in the dressing room. There's nowhere else like it. There's nothing that could be said in those dressing rooms that you would get away with. But
that dressing rooms are not like that now, what their dressing rooms were like, because like you said, nobody could walk in the dressing room without getting slaughtered. Regardless who it was, it could be a tea lady, kit man, young player. If you walked into that dressing room, you were getting slaughtered, weren't you? Yeah,
obviously the world has moved on, and people are easily offended now these days, so there's certain things that probably you wouldn't get away with. But I wouldn't change it for the world. It was great memories, some of the best days of my life, and some of the best fun that I can ever remember having, being a young lad growing up in that environment. So it was great.
Any of them that were really good with you? Am I right in saying you spent a lot of time with Larson in the gym when he was injured?
Yeah, I did. Henrik had obviously broke his leg, and I was in there with an injury as well. And with Jim Henry, do you remember Big Jim?
Big Jim, animal, wasn't he?
Absolute monster. And so yeah, you'd end up working side by side with these guys. But Henrik was so down to earth and level headed, and had a real air of presence about him on the park, and a confidence, but actually behind closed doors he was very talkative, and offering advice to the younger players, and we'd worked closely together in the gym. I'd left actually Celtic to go down to Stockport, and I was down there for maybe about 6 months, came back up around about Christmas time, ended up out in Glasgow with my brother and sister-in-law and my wife, and we were in a bar in a kind of a club in Glasgow, sitting over in the corner, and Henrik was actually at the bar with his wife and a few of his own pals, and my brother-in-law, Celtic mad, so he was like, oh, go over, we need to go over and get a picture with him. I said, look, I'm not going over to annoy the guy. I said, he probably doesn't even remember who I am. And I said, he's out having a bit, a good night with the family. And anyway, I went to the bar. 20 minutes later, standing maybe 20 people away from him, and sure enough, Henrik remembered us. Goody, how are you? Came and sat with us at the table. It was brilliant. My brother-in-law was never as quiet in his life as what he was when Henrik was sitting there. And that's just, he spoke about me, he spoke about Liam Keogh, he spoke about one or two of the other lads. He said, I've been keeping an eye on what you guys are up to. So great for a guy of that stature in the game to be still thinking about a nobody like me. So it was lovely.
Anyone else in that first team, even like positionally wise, it would help you, or was it just you just left to get
Alan Stubbs was great. I was his boot boy, and used to always give us boots and plenty of money at Christmas and things like that. Tommy Johnson got on great with. There was a few really good lads within that dressing room that were really fair with the younger players, and I mean we'd often meet them out. We used to go to, I don't know if you had been in the Monkey Bar before on Bath Street, but we used to go to the Monkey Bar on a Tuesday night and then up to Trash Nightclub on a Tuesday after that. And the older lads sometimes would be out, Tommy and Stubbsy and them, and they'd be down at the casino. And remember one night they came in and Tommy gave us all a couple of £100 in our kitty to go and enjoy the rest of the night. It was brilliant. They were really good lads and very very good with the younger players as well.
What a hero. Just lastly, Kenny Dalglish gave you your one appearance for Celtic. How was he? Again, probably not the type of character that people see on the telly. People look at him and think he's a bit drab, and it doesn't come across as bubbly as what he actually is in real person. But look, I grew up, my older brother Jerry, a massive Liverpool fan. As I said to you, in the south of Ireland, we never got the Scottish football highlights when you're growing up. It was always the English match of the day. So everybody had Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, whatever as their English team, but everybody supported Celtic. And obviously when Celtic is playing, that was the team you wanted to win. And but Kenny Dalglish, for me, growing up with my older brother playing the videos, I saw a lot of him in his Liverpool days. And so I couldn't believe when he came to the club initially, him and Terry McDermott and John Barnes, guys who I'd grew up watching playing for Liverpool. And then to be, in that close an environment, working with him daily, watching him even, he used to join in the five-a-sides, he couldn't move as much as he would have liked, but never wasted a pass, nutmegging players and scoring goals, just Would you smash him there?
Guy. No, never in a million years, no. But he was brilliant. And, these are people that you look back on. Without Kenny Dalglish, I wouldn't have been given that opportunity that I dreamed about, from being a young boy, being able to walk out the tunnel at Parkhead and play in front of, 50-odd thousand people, although I don't know if there's that many. I think it was down to 52 because you were all playing with it. I think it might have been 30-odd actually, but I tell people it was 60-odd. But
how was your dad with your debut?
Brilliant, yeah. I mean, but that doesn't give much away, to be fair. I don't know how he felt at the time, whether he was emotional or not, but very proud. I've been very fortunate with the upbringing and the childhood that I had. I grew up in a beautiful part of Ireland on the southeast coast down in Tramore, right on the beach. Sporting mad family. Father used to drive us the length and breadth of the country, never missed a game. Chasing me and my other three brothers around the place, and so I'm sure it was a proud moment for him that I had moved away at 15. They were very reluctant to let me go at the time, but they knew how much I wanted to do it, and I think it pays off when you get that opportunity then.
See, in your managerial career, who have you taken most from? Who would you say are a bit from everyone?
I think it's important to take bits and pieces from everyone. I think I've taken lots of positives from good managers I've worked with, and I've also looked at how maybe things didn't work for other managers and maybe tried to make sure I don't make those types of mistakes, albeit you still do ultimately go on to make mistakes and try and learn from them as we go. But I think those early days at Celtic, likes of Tommy, as I said, being dead infectious and enthusiasm. Willie McStay and Kenny McDowell worked, really well with them. Two different types of people with different ideas. But
Kenny was hard on the boys, wasn't he? But in a good way.
Kenny was ruthless, yeah.
Getting you ready for first team football, wasn't he?
Yeah, and more maybe around the tactical element of it and that aggression side of it. Whereas Willie McStay and Danny Craney were really about the technical element of it, trying to make you a better player. And then when I went down to England, I worked with some, really good managers, and probably the one that sticks out the most would be Nigel Adkins, who, when I left Stockport, went to Scunthorpe with Brian Laws, and Brian Laws left after about maybe 5 or 6 months and went to Sheffield Wednesday. And Nigel Adkins was our physio at the time, but he had all the badges and had all the qualifications and had managed in Wales prior to becoming a full-time physio. And they were putting Nigel in on an interim basis initially, and then always going to try and look for a more permanent fix, I think, after that. But he had such a good start when he took the job on. I think Brian had left us in 3rd or 4th in the table, and Nigel just built on that, and we ended up going on and winning the league. And it was it was League One at the time, a league where you had the likes of Sheffield Wednesday and Southampton and some really big teams in it. We should never have been up that end of the table. With one of the smallest clubs with the smallest budgets, but we had a top goalkeeper in Joe Murphy, who went on to play at a really high level. We had Billy Sharp up front, who played Premier League with Sheffield United, and 1 or 2 others as well. And we had a lot of guys like me then around the quality, just doing all the ugly stuff, and we ended up winning the league. And Nigel was brilliant, just his man management. I don't know if you've ever seen him in the media, but again,
he went on to be Southampton manager. Career,
went on to Southampton and Hull, and had great success. But he was never a shout on a bowler. Never, very rarely did you see him ever getting, losing his cool. He always very constructive in his criticism, and a really good man manager. And I think that's such an important part, of being a successful manager, is actually how you work with the players and how you treat the players on a daily basis. You can have all the best coaching content that you want, but if you can't, communicate with them properly, then it becomes a very difficult job.
And tell everyone what he done his first day as manager.
Well, I broke my ankle. We're talking about prior to coming on. I broke my ankle at Scunthorpe in a pre-season game. Had only been at the club for about 2 weeks, and 50-50, a stupid tackle from me.
Doesn't sound like it.
I know. And then chipped the bone in my ankle, and ended up being out for about 2.5 months, and worked really closely with Nigel at the time. And, grew to really like him as a person. Top physio as well, I have to say. And, managed to work me back to becoming fit. So we developed a decent relationship at that point. And then he gets the job as manager, and obviously I'm needing the strapping on my dodgy ankle. There's no physio. Well, we had brought in the youth team physio, who wasn't able to do the strapping the way that I needed it done. And so Nigel, prior to giving his team talk, was doing my strapping before his first game as manager. Brilliant. And then strapped me up. We went out and played, and we won the game. And
but other managers, no, I'm not going to be doing that now because I'm the manager. But it just kind of shows his humility as a person, doesn't it?
So humble, so down to earth, grounded. Another Scouser. I've worked with loads of Liverpool players and staff, and just great people. Very similar to the Glasgow people. Just no egos, down to earth, hard working people. And Nigel was like that. From start to finish, he would never do a job himself that he wouldn't, that he would expect someone else to do. And that I think shows the class of the man, that he maybe wants to go into that first team talk having a bit of authority about him, and showing everybody now that he's the boss, but he's willing to strap up my ankle first before he goes on with what the plans are for the day.
With the shirt and tie on, strapping your ankle?
Shirt and tied a lot.
You had a wee spell at Hamilton Accies. It was only a short spell. Why was that under Billy Reid?
I was at Huddersfield at the time, signed for Huddersfield at the beginning on a 3-year contract under Stan Ternent, another...
How was he? Because I hear a lot of stories about Stan Ternent.
Yeah, he was just an old schooled, manager that you would expect from the...
In your face?
In your face. But I loved him, I have to say, I really did. And even the way the deal was getting done, being at his house, trashing out the terms, just just a great way about him. And
well, at his house having a beer sort of type.
I just at his house having a bit of lunch, just trying to get things done, you know. And he worked with Ronnie Jepson, who was another real hard striker back in the day, tattoos all over the place. They were two guys you would never answer back, never mess with. But it just didn't work out for Stan, unfortunately. I think we had a lot of younger players had just been moved up from the academy in and around the first team, used to being mollycoddled, you know, used to getting pats on the back and being told don't worry when they make mistakes, whereas you've got a guy in Stan who is used to managing in a different way, and if you'd made a mistake or if things weren't going well, then you knew about it, and these younger ones couldn't handle it, and then unfortunately it didn't work out for them. So Lee Clark then came in very early on, told me I wasn't going to be part of his long-term plans, but I was sitting there with just short of 3 years on a contract, on a half decent contract, the best contract I probably had in my time in England, and there was no way I was going to get another one like it. So I told him that, look, if I can get fixed up I will, but if I can't, then I'm happy to stay here, knuckle down, hopefully try and change your opinion on me as a player. And I went on to play close to 40 games for Lee during that period, but the same thing happened the next year, and then going into my last year I had to get out. I had to play with a young family at the time, the two girls and my wife, and we always wanted to come back up the road, back up to Scotland to settle down. And Billy Reid had reached out to us asking if I'd come up and play with them till the January. Right. So it made perfect sense, and we moved back up to Glasgow within about 2 days, really. Just emptied the house, a couple of vans up the road, and loved my time at Hamilton. But it was only a short-term deal till the January. And then St Mirren offered me I think it was a 18-month deal or a 2.5-year deal, I can't remember. Danny Lennon was the manager at the time. And
how'd you find Danny? 'Cause I really like him.
I got on great with Danny, you know, and like I've been very, very fortunate. You know, a lot of managers, you know what it's like being in dressing rooms, Si, where some players like the manager, some don't. It's like any industry that you go into, you know, the boss man isn't always liked, and that's what it was like with Danny. You know, some of the players didn't particularly get on great with him. I was one of the lucky ones. You know, he taught a lot of me, made me club captain, and we had good success together as a manager and captain can have. And very unfortunate, I thought, at St Mirren at the time to lose his job in the manner that he did, because he was one of the most successful managers in previous, current history that what St Mirren have had for a long time. But these things happen in football, and no doubt Danny will get his opportunity again, because he's still, in terms of a manager, relatively young, and still got great ideas, and I'm sure he'll be desperate for another opportunity to get back in. Just want to ask you about a couple of players you played with at that time. You never played with Gaz McKenzie, did you? Yes, I did. No, I thought Gaz McKenzie. No, I managed Gaz McKenzie. Oh, did you? Big centre half. Yeah. I managed Gaz. Oof. That was a challenge every day. He's a psycho, the big man, isn't he? I tell you what, a lovely psycho. See, when he was fit, he was a right good defender, and I really liked him. We actually got on really, really well. But I had to make a lot of big decisions. When I took on the job at St Mirren, and Gaz was one of the ones that we decided to let go. Not on an ability sense, but purely on an availability. Were you scared of letting him go? No, he took it really well. He's a proper man, isn't he, Gary? You know what I mean? He can have an. I think guys like Gaz just want a bit of honesty and want a bit of truth be told. And ultimately in football, it's one man's opinion, isn't it? You know, and sometimes you let guys go that go on and do really well, and sometimes you let them go and they prove to be the right decision because the guys who came in make the team better. But Gaz was a great lad. What about John McGinn? Yeah, John. What was your first impression? Was John McGinn youth team when you first went, or was he in with the first team? He was just coming from the youth team into the first team. What were your first impressions when he came up? Listen, you see the style that he's got, that run that he has. We had another guy there, Kenny McLean, who you know well, and Kenny just looks so graceful when he's running. He's got a great kind of way of carrying himself on the pitch, left-footed, whereas McGinn was a bit more hustle and bustle, 100 mile an hour. Technically, I wouldn't have said he was brilliant, but had a brilliant attitude. And, you can see with his other two brothers, Stephen and Paul, going on to have great careers as well. And from a really good family as well, a real hard-working group of players, I think, those three boys. And that's why they've had the careers that they've had. But I would never have thought initially that you wouldn't have looked at John McGinn like maybe I would have done with a Mark Fotheringham back in the day. Fozzie was out of this world at 16, 17, whereas John, I thought, yeah, he'll have a career, but not to the level that he's went to now, being Scotland's star man, captain in Aston Villa in the Premier League, and couldn't be any happier for him. I send him the odd message now and again.
Does he patch it or does he get back?
He patches it for a few days and then, but always tends to get back to me. But
it's incredible what he's done in it.
Yeah, he's been brilliant, and he deserves every bit of it. He left St Mirren. Obviously, I can't imagine Tomo's brought up the reason.
Was it when he chucked a thing at it's been spoken
I wouldn't imagine the big man's.
No, he was a bit coy on it. He didn't want that mentioned.
Talk about my dodgy hands and all of that kind of stuff. But I'll save the big man his embarrassment. I won't talk about it. But yeah, I mean, John McGinn came into the first team and loads of enthusiasm, left-footed, real grafter. And Danny Lennon and Tommy Craig worked really closely with him, and gave him that opportunity initially, and he took it. And then he got the opportunity to go to Hibs. I know the St Mirren fans were really disappointed to see him go, but he went there, had success with Hibs, winning the cup with Alan Stubbs, and now for him to be a regular in the Premier League, it's great that to be able to look back on my playing career and think I've been in a dressing room with these types of guys, and
probably influenced him as well without knowing it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I always remember with John, Kenny McLean would be in the gym every day. As I said to you at the beginning of the show, it was something I prided myself on, being fit. And I've said it, and I don't say it modestly. I mean, I wasn't a very good footballer, so I had to make sure I was fit. I had a purpose for being in the team, and that was to be able to get around the pitch and get in people's faces. And I did take a bit of pride in going to the gym every day, and I'd go morning and afternoon, and I would always try and drag McGinn in with me, but he just had zero interest in it at that point. And I'd always be saying to him, and Paul McGowan was another one.
I was going to ask you about Paul McGowan.
Gowser, what a player as well.
What a player, mate.
Honestly, I was playing holding midfielder in that St Mirren team, and I had McGowan on one side. It was either McGinn or McLean or another. Sometimes we played a diamond with
McLean top,
Gowser up the top, and I could give the ball to any of the three of them.
Well, man up there asking to deal with it.
And they would take it, and they would deal with it, and they would handle it. And that was a big part of our success that we had at St Mirren. Those types of players, really brave on the ball. And I think, it does take courage as a young player to take it in tight areas and not be afraid to make mistakes. And Gowser was brilliant, but I used to have a bit of crack with both McGowan and McGinn about, come on, get your arse in the gym, it'll do you a world of good. But they weren't having it at that point. But then I think John, laterally, when he went to Hibs, I think the penny dropped that he had to get a bit more into the sports science side of things. Neil Lennon probably putting big demands on him, and now when you see him in that Aston Villa strip, he looks like a monster. Legs are even bigger than what they were. Physically up top, he looks like an athlete, and I don't think it's any coincidence that from doing that he's had the kind of career he's had. So
how were you with the younger boys in terms of, see what you said about at that time you were thinking about managers, you couldn't be truthful and honest with young boys because they couldn't take it well. Were you the type, would you be on the three guys and would you be honest with them when they weren't maybe at it?
Yeah, I think we speak about Tomo earlier, and that's like when Tomo came into the dressing room. I think that's probably one thing I look back on. Could I have been a little bit more laid back at certain points in my career? I probably could have been. I was probably too focused at times and too straight down the line. And when we were training, I felt we should be at it and on it all the time, and that's where Tomo would drive me insane, because he'd start doing stupid things, that would distract from what we're trying to do, and it was really hard to handle, worse than a child. And
so was there times where you would have to pull Stephen Thompson and say,
every now and again, but not that he'd listen. He wouldn't. It's not like he'd go, all right, okay, Jim, no problem. He'd just tell you to do one, but you'd end up wanting to absolutely annihilate him. But he was such an important player for us, Tomo, that there were certain players like that. We Gowser are the same. But one thing I'd say about Gowser, whenever he went out onto that training pitch, he trained like a demon, and he was always, more often than not, one of the best players in the session. But yeah, Tomo, you're trying to, as that stage in my career as a senior pro, as club captain, obviously, I'm trying to set a good example. I'm trying to, maybe influence them some way in terms of trying to be a good pro. And Tomo was a terrorist at times in the dressing room, and that's just what he was.
Because people see him on sports scene and they see this guy who can't read off an auto cue but is quite polished.
Incredible.
And but outside of football, there's been I think 10 or 12 people on here that have said he is an actual madman, especially like nights out and days out.
Listen,
any examples?
We've had some great nights out, you know, and listen, he's got a very serious job in the media now, so
They don't know what to kill him.
I maybe won't go into too much detail, but what I learned, and now as manager, what I've probably learned even more, is I was probably too serious as a player. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy a night out with the lads. I did. You know, when we went away, we had a good time. But when I was working, I was, as I said, kind of focused on that. I realise now as manager, you need to have different characters within the dressing room. Yeah. You couldn't have 20 of me because it would be boring, and it would be you know, like a military camp at times. You couldn't have 20 Tomos because you get nothing done. Yeah. So trying to get the balance right, I think, is the most important thing within any dressing room. And I think if you get those dynamics right, then that dressing room will manage itself. And there's nothing better as a manager walking by the dressing room and hearing the noise and the banter and the crack, as long as it's all within reason. So yeah, Tomo's brilliant. I'm delighted for him to, you know, he's now the face of Scottish football, and, you know, the ultimate job in the BBC, you know, front man for Sportsy. But, you know, I do remember going in on Monday mornings into St Mirren, sitting around. I used to have a table up the back, and I'd read my paper. I'd be one of the first in. I'd be sitting there with my paper and a coffee, and then a few lads would come in and we'd be talking about the game on a Sunday, and it might have been Man United and Liverpool, and Tom would sit down and he'd be like, "Do you see the game?" "I'm not watching football on a Sunday." "Are you mad?" And he'd just get up and walk away.
Somebody said that.
He said, "Is this going to be the conversation for the next half an hour?" I'm like, "We're talking about the game. It was a big game yesterday." "Nah, I'm away." And he just walked out. No interest. And now he's talking about football 7 days a week.
Amazing. Just lastly, player-wise, young Aaron Moy as well.
Yeah, Aaron Moy, you know, a real strange one. Technically, one of the best players in the group at the time, ability-wise, brilliant. Really shy, reserved guy, but a lovely lad. And I don't know what happened in terms of the conversation with Danny at that time. I don't know whether Aaron had maybe wanted to go back home. You know, a young Australian being that far away from home, not playing probably as regularly as what he would have liked either. Maybe felt it was a good opportunity for him. So it might have been, you know, a joint decision. You know, Danny certainly never released him because he didn't think the boy had talent. But, you know, obviously we look back on that one and think, could he have done more at St Mirren? Could he have become a more influential player? Quite possibly he could have, but again, went on to have a great career, obviously playing with Melbourne City and then getting the opportunity to come back to Man City.
Last one, you weren't there, but Mahrez came on trial, eh?
No, I was not. No, I wasn't, and that's again something that gets brought up. I don't know who was in charge at that time, who overlooked that one, but yeah, that's probably one of the mistakes of the century, to let that boy go. And
just last one, St Mirren, League Cup must have been the highlight of your time.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, you know, I've been very fortunate throughout my playing career to have, you know, won different things at different times. Spoke about, you know, Scunthorpe with the league down there, under 16s with Ireland. You know, we were the first team to win a major trophy for the country, winning the European Championships. You know, playing for Celtic, making that debut, getting a senior cap. I've done so much more than I ever would have anticipated that I would have been able to do and been able to talk about. And, you know, as I said, that, you know, very limited ability. So I think I definitely maximised what I could out of what I had. But that St Mirren one for me is the one that probably sticks out the most, purely because of the stage of my career it was at, the people that I had done it with as well, that dressing room, like Davy Van Zanten and Tomo, as I spoke about. Craig Sampson was in the goal, who's a really good close friend of mine now as well. And probably having my wife there with my two girls, you know, just those memories. I think, well, if that happens to you when you're 18-year-old, you probably don't appreciate it as much. But I think I was 32 or 33 at the time. You know, getting the girls down onto the pitch, I've got great pictures of it. My wife, actually, how she got through that day, I don't know. She was, what would she have been? She'd have been 7 months pregnant.
Yeah, boy.
With my boy at the time. So that's something he is desperate for to happen, because he sees that picture of me with the two girls in the cup, and at his age, being as football mad as he is, he's desperate for me to try and win something. So as much pressure as the Dundee United supporters put on us, there's no more pressure than my wee boys putting on me to make sure we win this league, so that I can get a picture with him and the trophy. So yeah, that's definitely the highlight of my playing career.
What do you remember of the game?
I remember everything, really, every detail. We were getting absolutely annihilated by Hearts in the opening 15-20 minutes, and could have been 2 or 3 down at that time. Sammy's made a couple of saves, we got a couple of blocks in, Hearts came flying out of the traps, but we managed to go and get real important goals at important moments. Tomo had probably 2 of the best games of his life in the semi-final with that, the goals against Celtic, and then scoring in the cup final against Hearts. Danny, deserves so much credit as well, because the recruitment that he had done, bringing in the likes of Connor Newton and Paul Dummett on loan from Newcastle, and obviously Paul Dummett went on, he's club captain at Newcastle now, had a great career. But I remember a lot about the game and the celebrations afterwards. The biggest disappointment for me was I actually had to go and give a drug sample, would you believe, a urine sample, straight after the game. And so all the lads have gone up the tunnel into the dressing room. All I can hear is the music and the beer bottles and everything else, and I'm in this wee room. As you know, you've probably done it yourself.
Never
before.
comes as well, mate. Never
happens when you want it to happen, and I missed out on all that. So that's probably the one regret that I have of that, but nothing we could do about it. It has to be done. And eventually,
worst if you're in the room with somebody that's a boring bastard as well. Who are you in with?
Yeah, I can't actually remember who got pulled from that.
Because there been 2 Hearts players as well, weren't there?
There was another Hearts player there, but I can't remember who that player was. But yeah, anyway, managed to get that over and done with, out of the way, and then go and join the players. And we had great celebrations back in Paisley. The club.
Bus parade, wasn't there? Was there a bus?
Yeah, there was. I bussed right through Paisley. Thousands of people out on the streets. Just brilliant for a town like that, to for the local people. And we'd done so much in the build up to the game as well, with the schools and the hospitals, and it really did feel like a community celebration. And the club were great after it as well. Put on a good function back at the Glen Hill till all hours of the morning. Free bar, as you would expect, and plenty of food. And
Tomo on the guitar?
Loved it. No, Tomo wasn't on the guitar. And it was probably the next day then that once everything settles down, I actually went home. I was probably getting back to me being a bit of a boring so-and-so. But I actually, at about 12:30, ended up going up the road with my wife, the kids and my dad, and sat having a bottle of red wine with my old man in the living room, watching the game back till about 2 a.m, and then went to bed. The next day was brilliant. The next day it was
carnage. I
had to go to the hospital with her to get the scan, to make sure everything was all right. Couldn't get out of there quick enough. She went up the road, I went into Paisley, and that was that.
Sorry, just on something you said, I want to ask you about it because it's such a big thing. International call-up, again, talk us through. Do you expect it to come? How does it come? What is the feeling like when you know you're going to play for Ireland?
It was a bit of a strange one for me, getting the senior cap, was because I'd been through all the different age groups from 15, 16s right up to the 21s. Again, played with some really fortunate enough to play with some really good players within that group as well. We played Finland in Finland. The 21s and the first team always tended to travel together, so we would play our game a night or two before, and I played at centre half. Mick McCarthy was at the game, and I just played really, really well on the night. I think I was captain.
Never offered to play right back that time.
Never offered to play right back that night, no. And so I played really well. We'd won the game. Back at the hotel, we all stayed in the same hotel having dinner, and Mick McCarthy told me that I was going to be involved the following evening with the first team. But I had obviously just thought, there was always 25 players in those friendlies at the time, and you were never sure if you were going to get on, but 15 minutes, I think it was maybe 12 minutes to go, he told
And what did he say, go warm up, John?
Yeah, he told me and another boy, Graham Barrett, who got drafted in as well, to go and get warm, and you're down doing what you can to get warm, and I'm thinking, there's no way I'm coming on here. I think it was one each in the game, but only a friendly. But yeah, got on. Robbie Keane actually came off for me to go on. But obviously I never took Robbie's place. I went back into central defence, played out the last 12-15 minutes of the game, and it was just a pinch yourself moment where you never thought for 1 minute was going to happen. Sami Hyypiä and Jari Litmanen, who were actually playing for Liverpool at the time, were playing for Finland. So I managed to get big Sami Hyypiä's jersey. He didn't want mine for some reason. So I managed to go up the road with my jersey, Hyypiä's jersey, and a green senior cap for my troubles. And that was it. That was the one and only. But, you know, Mick McCarthy saw something in me that night that he liked, and was very, very good of him to give me the opportunity to get a cap.
Amazing. So was Roy Keane done that?
No, Roy wasn't there. Roy had well fell out with Mick at that point. And,
but Robbie Keane, massive name. What was he like?
Robbie was a great guy. Yeah, really good guy. There was guys like Robbie and Ian Hart and just really good share. Stephen McPhail was the name I was thinking about.
Player.
Those three lads were brilliant. You know, Gary Kelly as well, the early part of it. 4 very level-headed, down-to-earth lads who knew what it was like to come from the under-21s into that, and you know they were always good boys to be around.
Brilliant. As you said, your boy wants you to win the league this year, short term, but in terms of long term goals, managerial wise, top level,
I'd love
as
to.
Possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would love to. After what's happened in the last couple of years, you know, leaving St Mirren, short period at Aberdeen, you know, I think it was maybe just less than 12 months. I'd really like to spend a significant period of time now with Dundee United and try and build something and really put down roots. And obviously, you know, short to medium term objective is to get promoted, to get back into the Premier League, and then after that is to build something at Dundee United that's sustainable and, you know, make us a top 6 team consistently. And of course, then I've got, you know, other ambitions out with that. You know, I've always fancied the idea of going down to England and being a manager down there. You know, I had 8 great years down there as a player. It's proper football down there. I know you've been down there as well with Swindon and what have you. But you know, that would be probably the long term goal. And then after that, I'd love to manage my country one day. I've said that numerous times. You know, Stephen Kenny's doing a great job, and I know results maybe don't reflect on that, and the Irish fans would laugh at me for saying that. But in terms of what he's had to do, in terms of rebuilding that squad and bringing the younger players through and giving those guys their opportunity, and you know, I hope he turns things around, and you know, wish him every success. But further afield, that's what the ultimate goal for me would be, is managing Ireland one day.
Brilliant, Jim. What a man.
All right,
thanks very much,
Simon.
Cheers,
Thanks,
mate.
Bob.
Thank you.